Minasan konnichiwa, KemushiChan no Loretta desu. Today I thought it would be fun to have a little bit of honest talk about one of the hardest things I experienced since starting university here in Japan. It may seem a little bit obvious, but it makes for a good story. So today I wanted to share the hardest thing I've experienced at a Japanese university is the Japanese. And the sheer volume of it. Didn't expect that one, did you? Yeah, I know you did. So before we get into the why and the funny story behind it all, I wanted to start things off on a positive note and thank the guys over at Satori Reader. You guys probably know them as a different name, the popular language learning resource known as Human Japanese, but that same team of guys have made a service called Satori Reader, which is probably something I should have been looking at long before I got myself into this Japanese reading mess. Imagine a library full of Japanese books that each one has audio, and combine that with a multi-layered explanation of the usages, the meanings, the readings of any word that you touch. A lot more of the articles seem more intermediate to advanced, so it may not be the best for complete beginners, but either way, no matter what your level, you can still adjust it.
Oh yeah, dude, I'm in trouble. Yeah, I can't read any of that kanji. Preferences. Okay, show them above all. Okay. Okay, yay, it's saved. We did it. Get out of here. Chakato wa sure ni o mochi desu ka? Chiku. Oh.
すでにお持ちですか?
いいチケットはすでにお持ちですか?
Your pronunciation like instantly gets better.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
That's basically Satori Reader in a nutshell, and since I started using the service, I got really excited. So I wanted to share that with you guys if learning Japanese, or specifically reading kanji, is something that you're tripping up on. So thanks to Satori Reader for sponsoring today's video and for sharing that service with me. If you guys have any questions about it, feel free to ask a comment below. But for now, it's time to get back to the story of what happens when you don't practice your reading. Here we go. So for those of you who don't know, I just started my third year at a graduate program at a university here in Japan, and I'm currently on the MEXT scholarship, which is the Japanese government essentially sponsoring students from abroad to come over to Japan. As a graduate student, that means you're sponsored by the Japanese government to either create some sort of research project, so that's either reading through articles, conducting interviews, whatever, and creating some sort of thesis or research or presentation. If you start as an audit student like me, you kind of get a chance to see it in a more casual situation. You don't have to stress about grades, and you get a chance to kind of get used to the way the classes are. So you're either in a huge lecture hall with hundreds of kids and you never have to talk, or you're in a really small tight-knit group type of class where all you do is talk. I noticed that there was a lot more reading and a lot more reading of the material in class. So if you do take an entrance exam and you do make it into a Japanese university, I found out that the spring semester or the first semester of every year is usually a lot more course intensive than the fall or second semester, about 18 credit hours or so, but it was all in Japanese, and all of the courses wanted to do intensive reading, 20 to 40 pages in Japanese with really small, tiny print font. I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, just a tiddly-widdly bit. And I really don't like to skip over things. I like to be able to say, oh, what is that word? That was interesting. I like to look at it, look into the meaning and see, analyze the nuance of it, see how it's used, look it up in a sentence, make an audio diary and say it back and use it in a YouTube video. Some 100+ pages in kanji in 0.2 font that you have to read by the next day. There's just no time to do that. So I found myself struggling for a while to basically keep up. I found that basically at the beginning of every chapter, if there were keywords that were repeated in the first few paragraphs, I would look those up. But pretty much after that point, you just can't look up anything else after that. You just have to start skipping. And I would basically speed read, looking at it, getting the idea, but I never could actually learn to read the sounds of a lot of these words. The thing about kanji, it's kind of like a blessing and a curse. You can look at it and you can kind of see the meaning, but you may not necessarily know how to say it. And that was always a thing that kind of tripped me up, because I was reading it and I was understanding it, but if you asked me to read it out loud, that would be a different story. And that brings me to point 2, reading aloud, or ondoku in Japanese. So my university really loves to practice ondoku. So having the students get in a circle and just take turns reading aloud what was in the text. By the time we got to class, they're like, all right, Loretta, can you read page 133 starting from section 2.2? And right now I'm looking at it and I'm like, 業務管理や労働時間管理の... And there it is. Oh gosh. I don't know this word. Is he really? Really? Do I have to do this, Sensei? Why are you doing this to me? 業務管理や労働時間管理の裁量性を高めるためにそれらについて管理者が具体的な指示をしないようにしたと。Like, I would try to lower my voice and maybe say it quickly and skip over the word, but the teacher would always stop, interrupt, tell me what the word is. 裁量労働制, flexible work hours, flex time. That's actually an interesting word to know. So stressful. I was one of the few very obviously visually non-Japanese people in class, and to be put on the spot and to not be able to read it off the top of my head like everyone else in the class, as a perfectionist and as a very competitive person with a lot of pride, it like destroyed me every time that happened. But the teachers, they're persistent. They're like, you will read this out loud. You will keep going, and I will prompt you with every word you need along the way, but you're not getting away with this. I thought they'd get sick of me. I was hoping they'd stop calling on me, but they don't. They keep coming for you. So back home in America, I learned Japanese in high school and in college, but I was able to get away with a lot more of faking it than I can now in Japan. So back in the day, we used a lot of the Genki series books. We used the next one, the intermediate Japanese book, and I could basically kind of cheat in my own way, where the night before I would actually memorize each dialogue. I would say it over and over and over again, and I would record myself saying it. 第3課、デートの約束、会話1。メアリーさん、週末は大抵何をしますか？そうですね。大抵うちで勉強します。でも時々映画を見ます。そうですか。じゃあ土曜日に映画を見ませんか？土曜日はちょっと。I would memorize the dialogue, walk into class, and as soon as she said we were reading it, I would just instantly raise my hand like, Sensei, 私がやります. Take the first sentence, take the first hit, and then do nothing else for the rest of the class and just pray to God she'd never call on me. Like, that was how I got through classes in high school, and probably why it took so long to learn Japanese. So the point is, you cannot do that in Japanese university because the teachers will keep pushing you, they will keep calling on you, and you will be put on the spot with very intense kanji. And it's almost like the stakes are almost higher at this point because I feel like they're like, この大学3年目ですか？いやでもこの漢字ぐらい読めないなんてちょっと変かなって。Why are they judging me? It takes a lot of adjusting because there's so much homework that you have to skip over the kanji and you don't have time to look it up. But then at the same time you get to class and you have to read each kanji and you have to read it out loud. And then suddenly you're like, well, what do I do now? That's the third thing that's really hard, is knowing the actual sounds that each kanji makes. Visual things, I like the graphics, but the actual sounds behind it, like, I mean, there have been times when I've counted 2 people as ninin before and made a complete fool of myself. So the sounds of kanji, reading them out loud, that's just not my forte. And to come to a university where that actually starts to matter, that can be kind of hard. In the workplace, when you're out with friends, you don't need to be able to read the actual sounds of the kanji. When you're in a station, there's usually even furigana over the station names. But in a Japanese university specifically, it's an academic setting, it's an intellectual setting. You have to be able to read the kanji and know which sounds happens in which context of the word. 日本のが大学の一番難しいところが日本語。もう当然なことだけどね。That's kind of why I wanted to introduce the Satori Reader app to you guys, because different levels where you can change whether it's furigana, change it to kanji, change it to kana, but you can also hear the sounds while you're reading it. That's something I missed out on because I was always obsessed with like the feel, the finger feel of books, of a page under your hands. Like, I like turning a page, I like smelling the dust come out and smack you in the face. That's the type of reading experience I like, but it wasn't actually helpful when it came to Japanese university. Sometimes I get emails and comments from you guys asking, is there a university in Japan that you can go to without having to speak Japanese? Yes, but not that many. A lot of the best schools, they'll have English courses or they'll have a few English classes, but you still have to get into the school. You still have to test into the school. My entrance exam was so Japanese that I had to take the English proficiency test that was part of the Japanese exam. I was like, I'm a native speaker, but had to go in the full Japanese experience. I was the only one who didn't get the memo that you're supposed to dress up in like the salaryman uniform as well. So you can find English programs, but the majority of the time, if you are doing a study abroad, or if you are doing a 4-year or a 2-year graduate school program, or a PhD program, whatever, you probably will experience some Japanese if you do come here. So I just wanted to share kind of that fun story. It's a lot better now. I got through all the classes and I didn't fail any of them. Maybe they had pity on me. I guess the moral of the story is, if you have a lot of reading to do, skip your way through and don't look up every word. But if you're in a Japanese university, you can't skip words because you're gonna have to read them out loud. It's like an oxymoron. That's kind of why I wanted to introduce Satori Reader, because I thought it was a great sort of tool to get you used to reading and get used to readings of kanji and their sounds. I thought that was really nice. So I definitely recommend that for intermediate, advanced, and even kind of like if you're getting to the late beginner stage, I think you'll really like that. And also, right about now, judging on when you're watching this, I know a lot of you guys are actually getting ready for the JLPT. Or if you have already taken it and you are now watching it afterwards, otsukaresama desu, right? You did that thing. I know you did. Have you ever made a funny mistake reading out loud or an embarrassing class story? Let me know in a comment below, and I will see you guys next time. では、今日もご視聴ありがとうございました。またね!